Oh, hi. Welcome. Good morning. It's coffee time with Dave. It's not really a show. It's not really anything, but it's like Monday and it's my day off. And I thought
I
I would
can't hear
have
you
coffee with one of
properly.
my. You can't hear me? Oh, no. Patty, you can't hear me? Oh, no.
All I'm getting
Can,
is
can,
interference of some kind.
uh-oh.
I don't know what I did.
All right. Let me try and do this. Let me try and change this. Wonder what happens if I do this. Can you hear me now? Is that any better? Oh, no.
Just hearing interference. I don't know if you can hear me, but
I
I
can
don't know
hear you.
what I've done.
Let's see. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's me.
Um,
Hang on. Let's see if this messes with anything. How about now? Can you hear me now? This is what happens.
okay, now I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Oh, good. So you're like just in a sort of a weird vortex in there. That's
I
what.
must
Yeah.
spin, or oh my goodness.
Well,
All right.
are you at Rogers today? You're over at the station. Maybe there's something super top secret going on at Rogers that they're running sort of tests of some description. You think that might be it?
Oh, I don't think so. I think it's just, I don't know, maybe something with our network today, and it's just. So I clicked onto my cell phone, and then you started talking. All I heard was like Morse code.
We're two people with TV experience and background fighting with technology. Still, the
Yep.
eternal fight with technology. Well, this is my little nothing internet show, and so if everything goes cattywampus and we lose you, the 8 viewers will have to. We'll return the subscription money and. Yeah. Well, listen, I wanted to. I've been going online and doing some of these different chats with some of my different friends, and just to be able to talk about who different people are and some of their backgrounds. And Patty's somebody, if you're watching, that is you recognize her from Rogers TV, and I recognize her from like 30 years of Rogers TV together, sort of in one way or another. Not maybe
we're close. We're getting close.
It wouldn't be 30, but it's getting there. It's close, isn't it?
Yeah. I've actually been an employee just over 27 years, but I started as a co-op student and volunteer. So in February, it'll be 28 years that I walked through the door here as a co-op. And
that's what it's like, almost a huge testament to the co-op program, right? Like it worked exactly how it was supposed to have worked, right? Like you get in there, get your hands into it, and you go, I kind of like this. Why'd you stay?
I think, well, I think part of it is, and you can speak to this as well, is when I started here, the staff was just wonderful as a co-op, and they brought me along so much. And if you can believe it, I was actually shy when I started here, and I had a passion for the technical side of TV, but I also did like doing interviewing, but I was so shy to put myself out there. So I really was just supported by staff that mentored me, and then it just became a place where I really enjoyed being. And one of the things I learned really early on in TV is that I didn't want to do hard-hitting news that was sad and crime and things like that. I really felt compelled to be frontline in my community, and I think that over time that just became the passion that what I had for TV.
So when I guess I would have been 18 years old. I guess it was probably 18.
17, 18.
Something like that. I was out one night and I was watching Barbershop Talk, and Barber with Al Cooper, who for years did this show and is still a local barber and a wonderful guy, and and he used to have this show that it was this rare bird of just different local ne'er-do-wells coming and hanging out in his barber shop, and Russ Faber, former postmaster, would be there, and Russ would laugh along to Al's jokes, and he had a bluegrass band, the brass tacks. Either grass or brass, I don't even remember which one they were, but anyway, I was watching this show, and I called up Rogers TV, and I because he was taking calls, and I did like my Johnny Carson impression and George Bush and all these guys, and Al goes, wow, are you a comedian? And I said, sure. He goes, well, we gotta have you over to the barbershop. And he took my information, and lo and behold, the next month I was there on Barbershop Talk, wearing a borrowed purple jacket and the old titles, Dave Carroll, high school comedian, and that was it. Like I caught some television bug that day, and always loved the idea. But Patti, I remember what the feeling was at Rogers back, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. I remember that. And it was show night, and there were at this first show I was on, Chris Friel, who was the mayor at the time, first time around. Chris was there, and it was like a NASCAR driver and the mayor and all these different people, and I think Tim Philp was hanging out, and the town crier was out in the common room, and I'm like, wow, this is neat. This is magic. And that's a word that you and I have used over the years. And there was a magic to it, and there still is. And right. Like it's still magic.
Yeah. I think that really speaks to what community TV is all about. It's a really welcoming environment. And in those years, it was a really big training ground. I mean, I look at, you went on to do broadcasting, and we had so many people that they got their taste for TV here, and then they went on and took other education. And Rogers has been really tremendous in that way, and giving people a chance to see if this is something they want to do before they spend all that money going to school. And it is. And that's, again, it's changed over the years, but I feel like this building here at 23 Harris Ave has always had that vibe. And I don't think it's ever changed. And I pray that it never will, because that's what the beauty is of being here is it really is a fun place to be. And yeah.
And that was one of the things that you and I talked about, I guess now, like 4 years ago or so, when we were talking about Brant Life and creating this show that we've been working on together for a bunch of years now. I guess it's 3-4 years.
Are we 5 years or 4 years?
Is it really? My goodness. Anyway, like we were together in that summer, and you said, I want to create that feel where people come, and obviously non-pandemic world, Zoom doesn't give you quite the touchy-feelies that we were looking for. But before that, we wanted people to be able to come and have that feel of something's happening. This is a community place. And it's one of the things that we always try to do before the show starts, is to be able to, greet people, to be able to let them laugh together and get to know. And it's neat, right? Like some shows, there's a guy who's got a bunch of reptiles in a suitcase and an ice dancer and a local politician, and they're all sitting in a room making chit chat. And I'm like, this should be the show. Like the green room should be the actual show. It's neat. It's such a cool, unique experience.
Yeah, I think it is. And that's something that you don't get when you go to a TV world. It just isn't there. And I think back to, I was 16 when I first started here, and I'm now 44. And, we have politicians and business leaders and people in our community that literally, they watched me grow up. And so I think that there's that special connection that many of them have with me, and I have with them because of that history. They had a chance to see me go from this kid to an adult and have her own family and stay in the community and stay actively involved in the community. So, that's a kind of history that you just can't get outside of community TV. And we're quirky. We're quirky here. And I've always said that we would make a great reality show, the behind the scenes of community TV. We would be up there with The Office. I think it would be.
It would have its moments for sure.
Sure.
Oh, I've got someone saying our video has no sound.
Aw.
Oh, but a bunch of people are watching, so there must be sound on it. There must be some
Okay.
sort of sound coming out of it. So let's. I remember the first time I met you. It was at Rogers, and I part of your jobs used to be the transcribing of phone calls. Like this is how
Mhm.
old this was, right? Like the
The
transcribing of phone calls that every viewer that would watch a show and they would call in because it was always if you'd like to talk about the show you've just watched, call us and let us know the Rogers viewer feedback. And when I was on for the first time, a bunch of my nitwit high school friends they called in. Oh, we got someone saying the sound's okay, so that's good.
Okay.
A bunch of my nitwit high school friends called in and were like, Dave Carroll should never be on television. This bleepity bleep. And a bunch of them called in. And it was your job to transcribe it. And I will never, like, this was my first time. Actually, it was probably second because you gave me my notes, essentially the feedback the next time I came in. And I remember you sheepishly going, I'm so sorry that I have to hand this to you. And it was this demoralizing tirade of nitwittery that I knew who had done it. So I bounced back. But it was
Well,
such a funny
that was 1994. And so at that time I was doing master control. And so the response line actually rang into our office, and it wasn't a voicemail. So you would hear after every show, you'd hear the line ring, and then it would play out loud. And, you did your show, but back then I had done, I think, 4-part series on local bands, and I did all the production for it. But then I also did interviews, and my interviewing was just terrible. It was bad. Like I wasn't really good at interviewing yet. And I remember playing my own show and then hearing the answering machine go off with, "You got to get this girl off TV. She's terrible." And I was like, well, do I really want to pick this for a career?
It's so funny.
But with that, you got good response too. But yes,
I got good response too, and I did 2 episodes of the Dave Carroll Show back then, and I think they were about a year apart, and Rogers ran them as reruns all throughout the year, and so people thought I did that show for years. I only ever did 2 episodes of the darn thing, but I remember my very first got recognized in public was during the Dave Carroll Show years. And I don't know whether I've told you this story before or not, but it's funny. So I was at a Brantford Smoke game back in the era of the Brantford Smoke. And I'm coming out of the hockey game, and a guy comes up to me and he's grabbing his eye, and there's blood dripping out of his eye. And he comes up and he goes, "Man, I accidentally shut the car door on my eye. And my eye is bleeding. Are you Dave Carroll from the Dave Carroll Show?" It's no word of a lie. That was the interaction. The guy was bleeding out of his eye after somehow shutting a car door on himself. And he stopped to go, "I know you from local TV." And I thought at that moment, this is a really interesting experience.
Yeah. I used to have people stop me in the mall and restaurants and say to me, "My internet has been really bad," or "My cable has been really bad." And so I would take people's name and number, and then I'd come back and have someone follow up with them. But, Brantford has grown a lot, but back then it wasn't that big of a city. So, and there wasn't as many channels for people to choose from either, right? So
It's still stunning, though, sometimes to me to know just how many people are still watching local television, and I love it. It's heartening, right? Like it's a heartening thing to be able to know that even in this age that it's happening. So so I got a piece of video I want to show you. And again, you may have seen this. I may have showed it to you because you originally put it together for me. So back when I guess it would have been early 2000s, when helped start what was then called Fresh Wind 99.5.
Oh.
And I used to do the morning show on this radio station, go home and grab a shower, and then I'd head over to Rogers every day and would do the first local news. And this was the Fresh Wind 99.5 first local information update. every day.
Yeah.
And it was me and the co-op students. And so it was years of like rotating co-op students. And okay, so if you're, this may only be interesting backstory if you're like a broadcast nerd, but you know how people that do news have a teleprompter or on the radio, they can't see you. Well, this was like a 3 or 4 minute newscast that I had just to have the piece of paper, and I'm trying to look at the camera as much as I can and look down at this little typed newscast, and getting through that thing in one take with no edits. It was like, it was broadcast gymnastics. And so in the middle of this, there were many bloopers that happened. And one year, you or Jason must have put together this blooper reel. So I compiled some of this. So let me see if I can find. Here it is. Yeah, my news bloopers from me doing news in the early 2000s. All right, here we go.
Turn away. In round the hot tub. Rick Woodcock said Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, you know, whichever you want. Depends if you're in a time warp or ready to. Ready? The cause of the crash was unknown, but it's also suspected because her van ran into a train. There were 3 reported cases. I just read that. Why do I want to hear that same sentence again? I don't. Why would you? Maybe I've got a case of the Norwalk virus. I've got runny diarrhea. Okay, whatever. You have to excuse me. I'm kind of an idiot. Sometimes I don't feel fresh, even after I shower. We used to play a game where you went around the classroom and you'd count or something like that. Then all of a sudden someone would go, "Pamplemousse." And I don't know what happened then, but I remember that you just yelled grapefruit for no. Maybe this is the funniest sounding word in the world. Pamplemousse. Squirrel? You have squirrel problems? Yes. You've been licking squirrels again behind my back. Hello? Thought I would have. Dark side is. Even I sense. Squirrels. Dirty squirrels. The daughter Howard, mom's Kathy's St. John's Green Eagles took down daughter's Jen's assumption. But thou thought I could have. It's the talking pineapple of death. In the Middle Ages, there was this donkey, and he talked. I'll give you a topic. Gingerbread men or neither gingerbread or really men. Discuss.
There you go.
Man, I remember. Oh, wow. You know what? There was one that. Do you remember we were doing a Remembrance Day taping, and there was something going on in the control room while you were doing your Fresh Wind update, and one of these veterans came in, and he didn't even realize that there was a camera in front of you. He pushed you out of the way while you were doing your news read.
I do remember.
And then you said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And I remember just laughing because I was like, he totally hip checked you out of the way, and you apologized. And wow, I'm crying laughing because I remember. Oh, gee, we were kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were very young. If we had only been able to see ourselves with gray beards all these years later, still doing the same shtick. But you know, it's funny. So how have you seen Brantford change over the years as a community? Because you've, like you said, since you were, 17, 18 years old, when you were a nervous young aspiring broadcaster, you threw yourself in the middle of the community. And so you've seen all kinds of different mayors come through. You've seen different political leaders. They all, come through during these times. And so you, I think, as much as anybody and more than most in our community, you've got your finger on sort of what the pulse of our city is. How have you watched Brantford change over the years?
Well, being a kid that grew up in the 80s, I still remember when Brantford really had an industrial collapse in a lot of ways. We were young when that happened, but, we went through a very depressed time in the 80s. And I think that sometimes when you still hear people talk about Brantford, you hear that I want to say we've carried that scar with us for quite a while. But as time has gone on, the city has reinvented itself in many times over. And we've had a lot of people move here from outside of Brantford that brings a lot more diversity to the city, which I think is something that is very different from when you and I grew up. But in terms of politicians, we've had some long-term people in place. But all through that, I will say that Brantford has become a little bit more hopeful, I think, in the last, I want to say 10, 11 years. I think that there's a bunch of people, and they're in our age group and a little younger, that went, hang on a second, we have a really, really great community here. And let's start focusing on that and not focus on, Massey's. And you think these things were you and I weren't, some people weren't even born, but those are the scars that our parents and grandparents carry. And younger people here said, no, we want to stay in our community. We want to live here. We don't want to move away. Or people moved away and came back. And I think that there is a real hope here. And you just even look at our real estate's gone up. Everything is starting to prosper here. And certainly I'm optimistic that when COVID passes and we start to get back to what life was, I don't believe this is a new normal. I think it's a moment in time that will change us all forever. But I do believe that things will resume and the prosperity will continue here. I know we do have issues.
Resiliency is a real thing, right?
I do believe that. Yeah.
And even as a community, and I echo the Massey's thing, but you knew that you were sort of a eye-rolling Gen Xer in Brantford when people talked about the combine, and and you knew what that was. Like, they didn't even just. I found that our boomer parents and never even called it Massey's. It was just when the combine left town. The combine. I used to do a whole routine about the combine, but it was only really a localized routine, and no one found it that funny even at the time. And you couldn't do it out of town anyway, so I guess no one cared or got it. But that it was scarring, and the city kept its scars for a lot of years, and it was a defining thing, sadly, for a long time in our community. And I think we've had, thankfully, more positive defining things that have happened since then. And I think every community is going to learn to be resilient on this and to be able to bounce back. And thankfully, we have some great people in the community who have encouraged our community all the way through, and will continue to into the future. Yep.
I do agree. And again, it's funny to even bring that up if you think how long ago it was, but it's important to acknowledge our past and how the mindset became, the people had this feeling that Brantford was a bad place to be. And I've always said, even if you look in maybe some of our rougher areas, we are nothing compared to Toronto or other communities. And I think that we have our challenges with you and I have done stories on opioid use, homelessness, poverty. I'm not saying that we're perfect, but I do believe there's a lot more hope here than there has been in my lifetime. And I think that the people are in place that want to change it and make it better. So I think the following years will be good once we get past this blip in the road.
And we will. And in the meantime, we do Brant Life on the internet, and you can catch it on Thursdays at 9.
Yeah, 9.
Thursdays at 9 is when it goes for the first time, and then runs throughout the week. And we didn't take a summer break this year doing this because what else did we have to do? So, if we're going to be on Zoom anyway, we might as well talk to people and do a show out of it. Right? So.
And also, if you've noticed, this weekend, I have been telling people there's a lot of great lights in Brantford and Brant County right now. So I've put a call out to people for our last show of 2020, Dave. I want to focus on these Christmas light displays. So we're going to work to get, because you and I both love the outrageousness of Christmas. I think that we need those happy lights and stories. So look for that. Get in contact with me or you, and we'll make it happen.
Is that this week? Is this our last week? Our last show? Or
this will be next week. This week.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a couple more weeks.
But I wanted to do it this week, so we have it for next week. So.
I like it.
Yeah.
Patti Berardi, thanks for hanging out with me on the internet, and
Thanks.
I hope you, as you're watching, made it through our technical struggles at the beginning.
Isn't that
and have
ridiculous?
enjoyed us just babbling our way through the internet nonsense.